Destination Anywhere was different to the band's work. John favoured a more experimental and varied approach than Bon Jovi did, mixing a variety of musical styles into his songs. Strictly speaking, it wasn't a solo album, as John employed the talents of a large number of songwriters as well as his own. Longtime collaborator Desmond Child appeared, as did Dave Stewart, the former member of Eurythmics, and Eric Brazilian of the Hooters, who also wrote songs for Joan Osborne. The album was also accompanied by an expensive promotional video featuring Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg and Kevin Bacon, as well as John himself. The 35-minute clip cost over $2 million to make and was only screened on a handful of occasions, making it one of the most costly promotional exercises of recent years. Upon its release, Destination Anywhere attracted a good deal of media attention, usually from one of two perspectives. The Americans disliked the album, and the singles either failed to chart or were never even released. In Britain, the album was a hit, producing 3 top 20 singles. One of these, Midnight in Chelsea, a song about his favourite district of London, proved especially popular, remaining a karaoke favourite for many months afterwards. The country-flavoured Janie Don't Take Your Love to Town was also successful, especially following a performance of the song at the 1997 MTV Europe Music Awards, where John was nominated in 2 categories. He finally came away with the Best Male Act trophy, having won a similar award for his earlier Blaze of Glory single. The shift in popularity from the United States to Europe was further indicated by John's other awards. He wasn't even nominated for any such trophies in his home country, but received several commendations in Europe. The 1998 Brit Awards saw him pick up Best International Male Award, and the Echo Awards in Hamburg, Germany also gave him the same trophy. By the end of 1997, John's solo projects had run their course, and all the members of Bon Jovi agreed it was time to begin preparation of their next album. A new team would be assembled, led by Bruce Fairbairn once again, who was to be assisted by Bob Rock, the producer of Keep the Faith. Recording wouldn't start immediately because Ritchie was still working on his second solo release, but as soon as that was finished, the guitarist was ready to devote himself to the next Bon Jovi album. Unfortunately, the band had no way of knowing that it would be nearly 3 years before this album was released. Bon Jovi's run of bad luck wasn't over yet.
You know, I think that we are a very energetic and, you know, I don't know if heavy was the right word, but just, we're a rock and roll band in our own right, you know what I mean? And I don't see any reason to ever put anybody down, or everybody just does what they do. We just kind of take a little longer look at our music, almost, than that, almost. It's just like they're, you know, they play faster, you know, and stuff, and they have, that's an attitude that they have.
In January 1998, John and Ritchie reunited to take part in a charity concert at the Count Basie Theatre in Monmouth County, the venue for their annual Christmas benefit concerts. The show, under the heading of Bon Jovi and Friends, was organised to raise money for the family of murdered police officer Sergeant Patrick King, who was shot by a fugitive while off duty. The concert also featured Bruce Springsteen and his longtime sidemen Little Steven and Southside Johnny. Tickets were selling for $125 and several thousand people attended the event. John was also the guest at a concert of a very different kind. Since 1996, the world-famous opera singer Luciano Pavarotti had hosted the Pavarotti and Friends concerts, designed to raise money for a childhood leukemia charity. The shows take place in Pavarotti's hometown of Modesti in Italy, a quiet place that once a year hosts the huge concert for charity. Stars of both the opera and pop worlds attend these annual shows, with Pavarotti frequently joining pop singers for renditions of their hits. John was invited to appear at the third of these concerts, alongside the Spice Girls, Celine Dion, The Cause and Stevie Wonder. As usual, the concert was a great success, raising over $2 million. Later that year, United Nations Secretary Kofi Annan appointed Pavarotti the UN Special Secretary for Peace. Much of 1998 did not go smoothly for the band. In June, their record company, Mercury, was absorbed into the Universal Music Group, forcing the band to sign with a new label, the Def Jam Island Partnership. They weren't entirely happy with this because it meant putting their career in the hands of people they didn't know. The staff at Mercury had all been well known to the band, but the new Universal executives were total strangers, and Bon Jovi had no idea who they were dealing with. Their main concern was the other bands on their particular label. Bon Jovi was a white, middle-class rock band, but they were now working alongside stars of the hip-hop and R&B world, such as Sisqó, Redman and the Wu-Tang Clan's Method Man. Although Def Jam and Island had an excellent reputation for integrity and a great history of supporting their bands, there weren't many bands like Bon Jovi on their books. One wrong move could set their career back years, and it took many months before the band were happy in their new home. During the delays caused by the change in record label, John had continued to further his movie career, making a number of low-key but critically respected films. In total, he appeared in 4 in 1998: Row Your Boat, Little City, No Looking Back and Homegrown. He had chosen these films carefully, eager to avoid a role in a typical Hollywood blockbuster of the die-hard type. John preferred to start off small and build up a reputation as a hard-working and committed actor before stepping into a high-profile movie. He had seen too many rock stars appear in a big-budget thriller, only to be savaged by the critics, who were notorious for not taking musicians seriously as actors. The plan worked, and John was recognised as a talented actor who had chosen the right films to appear in. Meanwhile, Ritchie's second solo album was released. Undiscovered Soul was treated much the same way as Stranger in This Town had been. The critics were impressed with Ritchie's voice, and his songwriting showed a tender, mature side of him that was never revealed on Bon Jovi's records. Unfortunately, the fans were not so impressed, and the album only managed to remain in the British Top 100 for 2 weeks. Primarily, it appealed to guitar players, who were aware of the album due to the extensive coverage given to it in guitar magazines. The rest of the music press paid it little attention, and the 2 singles released did not match the success of Bon Jovi's. By far the biggest impediment to the production of Bon Jovi's next album was the untimely death of Bruce Fairbairn, the band's long-term producer. After the upheavals with the record company, the death of their preferred producer was a crushing blow. Having worked with Bruce for over 10 years, the prospect of having to find a new producer was a daunting one. Many names were suggested, including some very prominent ones. Among them was Steve Lillywhite, a very respected English producer that had worked with Simple Minds, Talking Heads, U2 and Lenny Kravitz. But Steve's schedule prevented him from working with Bon Jovi, and the band were forced to look elsewhere. The next person to be suggested was Michael Beinhorn, a Los Angeles-based producer, most famous for his work with Soundgarden, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and most recently, shock rocker Marilyn Manson. The group were impressed, but felt that his style was not necessarily right for Bon Jovi, and continued their search. They even went so far as to consider Max Martin, the young Swedish producer who had recently found success working with Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys. Despite their efforts, it would be some time before the perfect producer was found, and even longer before the album was actually released.
You know, this band is still a rock band with lots of testosterone and, you know, that we can actually really play our instruments. Because there's a lot of bands out there that, you know, get deals nowadays that I ask them, you know, how long have you been playing? Well, I've been playing for 6 months, you know.
The traditional Christmas benefit show went ahead as planned, with John also making a special appearance at an all-star concert held in Washington, D.C. The show was billed as a very special Christmas from Washington, D.C., a celebration of Special Olympics. John sang the band's seasonal hit from 1994, Please Come Home for Christmas, whilst the President and Mrs. Clinton watched. The high-profile guest list included appearances from Sheryl Crow, Eric Clapton and Run DMC. The first few months of 1999 were mainly taken up with a quest for a producer for the next album. For a long time, Max Martin was a definite possibility, and the band tried hard to make the relationship work. Max was unused to working with a band as popular as Bon Jovi, because his work with Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys had been done before they were famous. The other difficulty Max faced was dealing with real instruments, as opposed to synthesizers and computer-based drum patterns. Bon Jovi were shocked when Max told them the closest he'd ever come to working with musicians was bringing a session guitarist into the studio for an hour. There were no regular musicians employed. Despite these handicaps, Bon Jovi and Max agreed to work on a trial session to see how things turned out. It was a learning experience for both parties. Max had never worked with a real band before, and Bon Jovi was surprised at his energy and enthusiasm, having been used to working with middle-aged professionals. Although eventually they both agreed that Max wasn't right for the album, they did produce 2 tracks, Bon Jovi's first new songs in 4 years. Real Life was created for the soundtrack to the movie Ed TV, an unexpected hit later that summer. The second song would be included on their next album. It was great for the band to be back in the studio after such a long break, and served as a good warm-up experience. It was the middle of 1999 before the right producer was found. Having had little luck with professionals, the band decided to try a new talent, someone who hadn't worked on an album yet. As a security measure, John and Richie would co-produce, hoping to take advantage of their experience whilst mixing it with youthful enthusiasm. In the end, a young man named Luke Ebben was chosen. A studio engineer by trade, like many engineers, he hoped to move into production very soon. Admiring his spirit and attitude, Bon Jovi asked Luke to take the helm for the next album. Somewhat overawed, but excited by the prospect, he quickly agreed. Preferring to make sure that everything was perfect, the band took their time over the new album. A release was planned for the middle of the year 2000, allowing them enough time to get everything right. Luke Ebben worked well with the band, coming up with many ideas they hadn't previously considered, and encouraging them to break away from their traditional way of doing things. The finished result would definitely be Bon Jovi, but a new, revitalised Bon Jovi. The album was finally called Crush. A 12-song collection of modern blues rock and ballads, it was easily their best work for years. As hard-edged as Keep the Faith, but more optimistic and hopeful than these days, it showed just what Bon Jovi were capable of in the year 2000. No longer interested in winning over new fans, they had concentrated on producing an album that their long-standing ones could appreciate. They succeeded spectacularly, showing the world that Bon Jovi still had plenty of life left in them yet. The first single, It's My Life, the other song that Max Martin had produced, was released in May, providing the band with their first hit single since 1996. Taking on from where Living on a Prayer had left off, it carried a message of hope for the rebels and the kids with dreams who are now grown up and trying to make their way in the world. Crush has been selling as well as the rest of their albums, suggesting that a lot of people in the world still care deeply about Bon Jovi. Hopefully, it won't take 4 years to get another album out, but even if it does, we can be sure it will be another truly great record.
Thank you for buying Maximum Bon Jovi. We hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for further titles on Chrome Dreams coming up soon. If you did enjoy it or have any comments or suggestions, write to us at Chrome Dreams, PO Box 230, New Malden, Surrey, UK. KT36YY or email on mail@chromedreams.co.uk. For more details on joining the Maximum Collectors Club and claiming your free CDs, check out our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk or look at the booklet inside this CD. Thanks again for listening and goodbye for now.